produce cashmere. Angora goats produce, no, not Angora. Angora fiber comes from rabbits. Angora goats produce mohair. Mohair is used to make clothing, carpets, and other products. The goats came from the Anatolian plains. Their name comes from the Turkish city of Ankara. The Mohair Council of America says the first Angora goats arrived in the United States in 1849. 7 females and 2 males were imported. Today, the United States is one of the world's leading producers of mohair. The other top sources are South Africa and Turkey. 90% of the mohair from the United States comes from Texas. An adult Angora can produce as much as 7 kilograms of hair each year. The value of the coat depends on the age, size, and condition of the goat. As Angoras get older, their hair becomes thicker and less valuable. The goats need their mother's milk for the first 3 or 4 months. They reach full maturity at about 2 years. But even then, they are smaller than most sheep and milk goats. Cashmere goats are usually larger than Angoras. Cashmere goats can grow big enough to be kept with sheep and cattle. The outer hair of the animal is called guard hair. Behind it is the valuable material on a cashmere goat. Some farmers just comb their cashmere goats to remove the hair. But if the goats do get a haircut, it often happens that when they would naturally lose their winter coat, between December and March. Angora goats generally get their hair cut twice a year, in the spring and fall. Owners do it themselves or hire a professional shearer. An Angora without a coat can get cold, so the sheared goat may need to be kept extra warm for about a month after shearing. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. To read, listen, and learn English with our stories about agriculture and other topics, go to voaspecialenglish.com. You can also find captioned videos of our programs at the VOA Learning English channel on YouTube.
Agriculture Report. Years ago, a young forester took an unusual new job. Earl Cooley became one of the first smoke jumpers. Smoke jumpers parachute from airplanes. They fight fires that crews cannot reach quickly or easily from the ground. Earl Cooley worked for the United States Forest Service, an agency of the Agriculture Department. The Forest Service had a plane that it wanted to use to drop water bombs onto wildfires. But that idea failed. So the agency decided to use the plane for what was then a new practice: smoke jumping. The first fire jump in the United States took place on July 12, 1940, in the Nez Perce National Forest in Idaho. Another smoke jumper, Rufus Robinson, went first. Then out came Earl Cooley. As he later described it, the plane was not much more than half a kilometer above the trees. The day was windy, and the jump was not as good as others he had made. He began to turn over in the air when his chute opened, and there were problems with the lines at first. But he chose a large spruce tree to land in near the fire and climbed down. With hand tools, he and Rufus Robinson threw dirt on the fire and dug a line to contain it so the flames would not spread. They worked through the night and had the fire controlled the next morning when other men arrived from a camp in the area. Earl Cooley always said he was not afraid being a smoke jumper. Over the years, he worked to develop the profession. He served as the first president of the National Smoke Jumper Association. He also wrote about his experiences. But not all had happy endings. On August 5, 1949, he was involved in a disaster at a forest fire near Helena, Montana. He had to choose where a crew would jump, but the wind changed and the fire grew unexpectedly, taking 13 lives. Many years later, Earl Cooley told a newspaper that he still believed he had made the best decision he could. He retired from the Forest Service in 1975. But he continued to visit the mountain where the men lost their lives until he could no longer make the climb. Earl Cooley died on November 9th in Missoula, Montana. He was 98 years old. Today, more than 270 men and women are smoke jumpers for the Forest Service. Smoke jumpers are also used in Russia and other countries. And that's the VOA Special English Agriculture Report.
This is the Agriculture Report in Special English. IKEA recently recalled frozen meatballs from its European stores after tests found some contained horse meat. Czech investigators said they found small amounts of horse meat in Swedish meatballs at an IKEA store in the Czech Republic. IKEA is the big Swedish company that sells furniture, but its stores also sell Swedish foods. The packaging said the meatballs contained beef and pork. IKEA said meatballs from the contaminated batch were sent to stores in some other European countries. They included Belgium, Britain, France, Spain, Italy, Greece, and the Netherlands. Recently, laboratory tests found horse meat being sold as beef in a number of European Union countries. The EU law enforcement agency, Europol, is investigating the meat industry. Owen Paterson is the British Environment Secretary. He says the sale of horse meat as beef is unacceptable. He called it a fraud on the public. Millions of food items have been removed from stores, schools, and hospitals. No one has reported any health problems, and the French eat horse meat. But the situation has upset consumers across Europe. In Britain, horse meat was discovered in frozen meals sold by the Swedish-based frozen food company Findus. In France, an investigation has accused the French meat processing company Spanghero of knowingly selling horse meat as beef. The company denies the accusation. The EU requires the packaging of fresh meat to identify the country where it was produced. But in prepared meals, only the kind of meat used is required to be listed. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman.
English Agriculture Report. Pastoralism remains a way of life in East Africa. Herders travel from place to place in the dry, dusty deserts to find food and water for their animals. But some people think this movement of livestock is bad for the environment. They say pastoralists should settle on farms and grow their own food, especially in times of shortages. Not everyone agrees. Experts recently met in Nairobi to discuss what to